Hello, I'm Nicola Morgan and I'm here with Megan Morgan, who is my niece and also my research assistant. And Megan has got some questions to ask me about well-being.
So you've written lots of books about teenage well-being. Why have you chosen teenagers rather than any other age group?
Well, I think if I had written for any other age group, I would probably actually be saying mostly the same things because well-being is, and the way we deal with that and the way we have good well-being, the way we look after ourselves is really pretty much the same whatever age we are. But I wanted to focus on teenagers because when I was a teenager and also through my 20s and really into my 30s as well, I didn't have good well-being. And there were lots of things that I was doing wrong, as I now know. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand how to look after myself. My personality type is an overworking, ambitious, high-achieving, perfectionist one. And those types of people are often very vulnerable to stress-related illnesses. And that's what I suffered from a lot. And so I spent a lot of time as a teenager and a younger adult underperforming and being unwell and just really not coping well with life. But now I've learned how to look after myself. I've learned what I was doing wrong. And really what I'm trying to do now with young people is to show them all the things that I really wish that I had known and wish that I'd believed. Because you shouldn't have to wait until you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s to have good well-being. The things that we can do to look after ourselves are best done as early as possible. And then we can have good well-being from a much earlier age.
So what do you think is the key to well-being?
I mean, there are lots of practical things that we can do to look after ourselves, but I think it boils down to, or it has to start from, understanding the things that we can control in our lives and what we can't control in our lives, and trying to focus our energies on the things that we can control and trying to not ignore the things we can't control, but not to think that they're too important, not to focus on them. So to kind of just put them away in a part of our brain where they can't do any harm, and to focus our energies on the things that we can control. And one of the things that I think is particularly relevant for young people is that young people typically feel very much not in control of lots of things of their life, because that is how it is for young people. They have all of the rules are made for them, and when they're at school they have to do certain things at certain times. And yeah, adults have to do certain things at certain times as well, but adults tend to have much more control over their lives and young people tend not to. But my message for young people is that actually they can have much more control than they think. That there are, if they understand the many, often quite simple and often quite fun, practical things that they can do to look after themselves and have better mental and physical health, which is what I think well-being is, then they can get that sense of control and they can devote their energies to making those things that they can control better. So whether it's food and water, the food choices that they make, and making sure they have enough food as well, because often people are not eating enough to give them the energy to make their brain work well. So there's food and water, there's physical exercise, there's sleep, and there's relaxation. And I always say that well-being is like a four-legged table, and it's those four things: food and water, exercise, sleep, and relaxation. And if you think about a four-legged table, if one of those things is weak, the whole table collapses. And the one thing that people, particularly people with personality types like mine and many others, so those high-achieving, perfectionist, want to do well at everything types of people, the problem for them is that they tend to ignore the relaxation part. They might do the food and water and the exercise and the sleep quite well, but they think, oh, relaxation, that's something that we'll do when we deserve it, when we've finished our work, when we've done our exams, when it's the holidays and weekends. And that's the mistake that people make, is thinking of relaxation as a luxury. And my mantra is relaxation is not a luxury. It's an integral, important, really vital part of well-being.
How do you look after your own well-being? Do you practice what you preach?
I do practice what I preach mostly. No one's perfect, and actually it's quite important not to have perfection as a goal anyway. So I do practice what I preach, though, and that's why I'm well now. That's why I have good well-being. So I have good mental and physical health. That doesn't mean that I never have a cold or anything like that. It means I rarely get colds, but everyone gets a cold sometimes, and everyone goes a bit under sometimes. But I do have good well-being now because I know how important it is to look after myself. And this is what I've learned, that if I do certain things right, then I'll have good well-being, and I'll feel better, and I'll function better, and I'll achieve better. So it becomes like a circle. So the things that I do are to make sure that I do make good choices with food and sleep and exercise. So it would be easy for me as a writer to sit at my desk all the time. And especially being someone who's hardworking and very busy, I could easily sit at my desk all the time. But because I know that sitting for too long and not getting out and about and doing some other things is a really bad idea, I make sure that I get out and do other things. So I might do gardening. So gardening is a really good hobby for me because you're outside, which is good. It's physical, which is good. It is only using a little bit of my brain. You don't have to concentrate very hard on gardening. So I can do lots of thinking and planning and creative thoughts while I'm gardening. And I get to grow lots of vegetables, which I love. And being able to eat something that you just picked, that you grew yourself from seed or from a small plant, that makes you feel really good. So that improves well-being as well. This year I started running. So I never used to run. I never wanted to be honest. I never thought I would like it, but I, for various reasons, just decided to start running and surprised myself by liking it. And that's made me fitter. I know that I'm fitter. And it makes you feel really good when you're out in the fresh air and running, and your heart rate's going up, and you know this is good for you. So it's physically and mentally beneficial. And I also love cooking, so especially if it's food that I've grown and then I cook it. Cooking has always been a very relaxing thing for me. So as I say, it would be easy for me to sit at my desk and just keep on working, because I've never finished the work that I've got. There's always something else I want to do. But I know that if I did do that, I would become unwell. I'd become ill. I wouldn't be able to work so well. I wouldn't feel so good. And everything would then start to crumble and just not be as positive and healthy as it is. So I've had to learn that, I guess, the hard way through being ill when I was younger. So as I say, that's why I want to share these messages now, because there are things that we can do. Now, not everyone else is going to want to do gardening or cooking, but there are always things that everyone can do. So it's a matter of finding your choices, the things that you know work for you and make you feel good and better and more relaxed and more positive and more energized. And they might be little things like having a bath. That's another one for me, actually. So, having a bath might take 10 or 15 minutes, but it's time that is just for you, and it's relaxing, obviously. But it could be just sitting in the sun and having a cup of coffee, or going and chatting to a friend, or even going online and chatting to a friend online. So just making sure that you make time for yourself. And it goes back to the thing that I said about relaxation is not a luxury. It's not indulgent and luxurious to have a hobby or to take a break. It's important. It's as important as eating the right foods and eating enough and sleeping enough and all of those other things. So it's just fundamentally important. So I do practice what I preach, in the sense that I do make time for myself to do those things. But I also make some mistakes. I sometimes spend a bit too much time online, whereas I know that there's nothing wrong with spending time online, but I know that I am a little bit hooked on my smartphone and social media, and I do find it quite difficult to turn those things off. But then I remind myself that no, actually there are some more important, more useful, more healthy, more relaxing things to do with your time as well. Reading books is another really important thing for me. I know a lot of the science behind reading for pleasure and why it does such good things for us, for our minds and for our bodies as well. So that's a big deal of mine. I have this word relaxation, which is reading for relaxation, and I have a whole section on my website with all sorts of facts, the science behind relaxation.
Do you have a final tip?
I think the final tip is to respect yourself and not be too hard on yourself, and not expect that you're always going to feel perfectly healthy and perfectly well and perfectly positive, because life's not like that. And well-being isn't about feeling great all of the time. Well-being is something much more underlying than that. It's not like happiness, which is about how you feel now. It's about much more of a basis of good mental and physical health that will mean that when bad things happen, as they will, or when you mess up and you make a mistake, or you've worked too hard or not hard enough or whatever, that you just go easy on yourself and say, well, okay, that's how it goes. I can't be perfect. I can't have full control over everything. Stuff happens, and let it go and move on and pick yourself up and do it again, try again.